Guys, hope you're having a good weekend. This is the watch list video for November 23rd. It should be Monday. TERP, I've had on bounce watch for a few days. Nice green day on Friday, and just looking for a continuation of the bounce. Over Friday's high would be 926, maybe a red to green also. We'll see how it trades, but certainly worth watching. Taser called this one as a potential long going into Friday, and it closed near its high, so just switched to 15-minute candles here. I do like it, over Friday's high. 1817. Guys, when I give you these potential trigger prices, I don't live and die by them, okay? Taser, might open at 1750 on Monday. I have no idea if it's going to have news or anything like that. So these numbers don't mean that much, but there maybe if like you get a flat open, opens around 1810, somewhere around there, and sells off down to 1790, then comes back up through and goes red to green, and you know that 1817 would be a break of Friday's high, so that's where you end up with stacked catalysts, and these are the kind of setups I look for. So just understand that if I give you a price like 926 on TERP or 1817 on Taser, I don't live and die by those prices because I have no idea how they're going to trade at the open, but they are potential catalysts, so I do kind of have them in my notes, all right? So just keep that in mind. EMES, love the volume back here, and it ran over like a day and a half from 449 to the very next day. The high was 828. So that's a really big percentage move. And then it's kind of been pulling back and then really found support right around $5 for a couple of weeks, and then got an extra little volume pop on Friday. And so to me, this is worth watching. Like something might be up here, and love it over Friday's high, which would be 594. But again, like the other numbers, I don't live and die by that. But it is a number you want to have in your notes, all right? For EMES, FRD. This is not the car company, but it's interesting. You had a massive move back here from 92 cents to 390. Then you had a lower high, I don't know, 3 weeks later that went to 291. Then another lower high, and now it's just really done nothing. And then, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago, you had this spike to $1.80, came back down, really held this area. So now trying to get going again, all right? So that's the extent of what I'm looking at here. And then I like the fact that on Friday it went to $1.59. So if you look at this chart and this gets through $1.59 on Monday, or really anytime next week, there's really nothing in the way, and you have nice support below of a possible retest of $1.80. And then if you get over $1.80, that's what I call the next catalyst. This one could really take off. There's just not a lot of resistance in the way. So this is a lower float stock, and as you can see, can move at times. So it doesn't cost me a nickel to have these on watch, and if I get the proper setup on FRD, I might be able to make 5-10% in a matter of minutes. So that's why I always have these charts that look like this on watch, even though it's a lower volume, lower float stock. AVXL. This one's interesting. Had this really nice move here, pulled back, closed above its open on Friday. I don't really have a catalyst on it as far as a price. I mean, what do you look at other than Friday's high, which would be over 630? Then there's not a lot in the way for this to continue. But for me, that 630 doesn't mean that much because it closed at 583. But I do want to watch it for a potential, maybe a red to green or something like that on Monday. All right, CLDX got a nice volume spike and tried to break out of this cup and handle on Friday. It looks like it gave some of that back. But again, a good candidate for a possible red to green. Maybe you get a second wave higher. SEDG, we've been watching this one. I like the way it's been acting lately, and a really nice pop on Thursday, and really held up pretty well on Friday. So over the 2-day high, this might continue. It still feels a little bit extended because it's in 3 sessions. It's come from 1583 to 1850-ish. It's a pretty good percentage move in a short period of time. Is what it did on Friday enough of a consolidation here for another leg? I don't know, but it definitely found support around 1780, 1790, $18 on Friday. So it's worth having on a chart like the others. Okay, EROS. We've had some really big trades in this one lately, and this has fallen from on October 13th. This was $31, almost $32, and just recently went below 7. Okay, so it still has some bounce in it if it's going to get going. All right, so I look at Friday as just a quiet, do-nothing consolidation day. So you had this huge move on Thursday. We participated in that one, and then Friday just kind of a quiet sideways day. So that might be enough of a consolidation to start another leg higher here. This one really moves nicely when it moves, so I definitely got to have that one on a chart. GPOR, nothing pretty here, but potential bounce. All right, that's it. That is it. There's nothing fancy here, just grinding lower and then starting to get that downside shape. 4 days in a row, big volume on Friday. It's a decent setup for a potential bounce. As an example, let's see, GLBL. We had that on watch, and I'll take Friday's candle out of it. So if you wonder why I look for these, GLBL just really beaten up, had that kind of shape change, 3 days lower, big volume. And then on Friday, I called it long right here, which was 482. I think the stop, no, 492. I'm sorry, 492 right there. Stop was 482. The stop held, and this went from 492 at one point to 546. That's a really nice percentage gain, and it held up pretty well. So that I'm not looking at that one so much, but I'm using it as an example of why I have things that are beaten up on watch. GPOR doesn't look that much different, than GLBL did. All right, so that's why I usually have one stock that's really beaten up on watch. Now, there's not a lot of chart to go on for this SQ, which is Square. Do I use my video? Yeah, I think I will. I'm going to tell a quick story about Square because I think it's a good story and it's short, so I'll tell it. But anyway, real quick, I want to watch SQ. Came public on Thursday, ran all the way to whatever this was, 1478, and then gapped down, or not gapped down, actually gapped up from the close on Friday, and then was kind of weak. So, there's not a lot of chart to go on, but anytime you have a relatively new issue, sometimes you can get a really nice move 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 days in. Okay, so I just kind of have this on long watch if I get a narrow range and then an upside break sometime on Monday, or really anytime this week. My short story on Square is in my ninth grade geometry class, I sat behind a guy named Jim McKelvey, and one time he was asking Professor Davies, who I wasn't a fan of, him and Professor Davies were having an argument over something, and Jim McKelvey said the sentence, well, aren't you taking a quantum leap? Something. I don't even remember the rest of the sentence, but he asked the professor if he was taking a quantum leap in logic for some deduction he was making, and I remember thinking to myself, who in ninth grade talks like that? Well, Jim McKelvey is the co-founder of Square, so there's your answer. The co-founder of Square is somebody who talks like that in ninth grade. So, but it's kind of cool to see that, and having known him and sat behind him in geometry, and then I knew him all the way through my senior year. I'm not even a little bit surprised. Super smart guy and as nice as it can get. But anyway, that's my story on Square. Not calling any trades off of that story, but it's still kind of cool to see him doing so well. And MCUR is my final one, and this just goes on watch because it made this massive move on really big volume. Maybe we get a red to green on something like that, and maybe there's absolutely no setup tomorrow. But this is one with 13 million shares traded on Friday and a very strong close and a beaten up stock. This is one that you keep on watch all next week. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully we'll find some gappers in the morning too. Remember to trade smaller this week. It's a holiday week. Volume is going to be really dead. So literally every day this week, with the exception of Thursday because the market's not open Thursday, I'm looking to make my money, whatever money I'm going to make, and I'm lowering my profit expectations on a holiday week. But I'm looking to make my profits in the first hour, and probably won't do anything after 2 hours on any of these days because volume, I expect, would really drop off, right? So be safe this week, trade smaller, lower your expectations, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and see you guys on Monday.